Doctor, you just heard the CDC director talking about the UK variant as cases continue to rise in Michigan, in New Jersey. The headline in this weekend's Washington Post warns the rise in variants will define the next phase of the pandemic. What are we looking at in the near term?
Well, thank you so much for having me on, Alicia, especially today. I would say that we are at another very critical point. What we're seeing in Michigan could be a harbinger of what other states are to expect. And it's really unclear why Michigan is the hot spot right now. It may be because it was one of the first states to have the B117 variant. Also because there was relaxation of restrictions, as well as the fact that Michigan just did so well with those restrictions in place that they may have a more vulnerable population. So a lot of different reasons why, and I think that we still have to be on guard, even though we have that light at the end of the tunnel. And I think ultimately it'll be up to both individual will as well as political will as to whether leaders will put those restrictions back in place.
There was a report out earlier this week that when I saw just knocked the wind out of me, showing that Black children account for 20% of the kids who lost a parent to COVID. They only account for 14% of the total child population in the U.S. You have been ringing the bell on equity since the beginning of this pandemic. When you see numbers like this, what do they tell you?
This is just absolutely devastating. We know that Black communities, other communities of color have been disproportionately impacted by this pandemic, health-wise, economic-wise, and now psychologically. I feel like almost we're going to have this lost generation of children who have not only lost their elders, but also their parents. And we know that with parental trauma, there are increased risks of depression, PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome, and those children are more likely to experience economic insecurity. And so I think we're going to need this administration, as well as future administrations, to make sure we're tracking these children, providing them with both the psychological and economic resources that they'll need to thrive in the future.
Especially because this crisis is not yet in our rear view. I mean, as more and more people get the vaccine, we're also hearing about breakthrough infections, people testing positive after getting the shot. We know the shot is not 100% effective, that a booster may be needed. But what does this mean about our behavior and how we all need to look at a return to normal?
Well, what I will say is that return to normal may not come as quickly as we would like. However, I think it'll come in a stepwise fashion. What we need to do is, while we're vaccinating as many people as possible, we also need to control the number of cases and the degree of spread. So with both those, we can reach herd immunity faster. But again, we need everyone to realize that they have a part in this, and that, we're not saying, don't do things that you enjoy, but we're saying to avoid high risk activities and maybe just do low and medium risk. But we need to really get through these next few months until we have a more significant percentage of the population vaccinated, as well as cases under control.
Georgia this week became the third state to shut down a Johnson & Johnson vaccine site after adverse reactions were reported. North Carolina, Colorado have done the same. How concerned should Americans be about these reactions? What more do they need to know about them?
Well, what I will say is, for now, these reactions are quite rare. I know that they may seem very scary to the public, but when we look at the number of people who have received the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, these occurrences are again, quite relatively rare. And what we'll need is for the FDA, CDC to continue to monitor the effects of these vaccines. We know that most of the side effects occur immediately after getting them, but I will say overall the data that we have, and again, it's been given to millions of people, are quite safe. But again, we need to continue to follow how people respond to these vaccines.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.